Hey gang, today we are going to make a little chat system. I figured I'd just do it real quick, just see what's going on. That way when you want like little speech bubbles or whatever, you can have them. So what we can do is, let's go to scripts. Let's, I'll make a new one. I'll call it folder here. I'll call it text. Chat system. It's not really a chat though. Dialogue. Oh, there it is. Dialogue system. There it is. Excuse me. Okay, so if we pop in here, we're going to need a script that represents the UI, so maybe like Dialog Panel. And the Dialog Panel is going to be of type Menu Panel, which is something we already had, Menu Panel. Boom. And there's going to be a few things I already know that we're going to have, so like using Unity Engine.UI, because it's going to need to give text stuff to the UI. So let's do public text, dialog text. And maybe there's also going to be a name text. I don't know, public text, name text. And we'll do that for now. And then maybe a public void set name text. And it'll take in a string. Same thing for the other one, public void set dialog text. It'll also take a string. And then we can do like name text dot text equals whatever name we just passed in through here. Dialog, the dialog text will do the same. So dialog text dot text equals dialog. And now we already have the underpinnings of the UI system, which will receive information and go, hey, set up your current dialog, make it look like this. We already have the open panel, close panel behavior from the parent, which is menu panel, so I shouldn't have to worry about that much. Maybe I'd have public void trigger dialog. I'll avoid that for now. We'll see how I want to handle it later. So not only do we have the dialog panel, but we'll also have a dialog manager, something like that, dialog manager. Just like we have a game manager and an audio manager and all that type of stuff, we'll have a dialog manager. And the dialog manager will do what? He'll manage dialogues. What is a dialogue? It could be defined perhaps as, I'll put it inside of here, public, we'll make a structure to represent it. So public struct dialog object, just like how we had an inventory object and an audio object in the previous ones. Like audio objects were a sound effect enumerator and the sound clip that was associated with it, and then maybe a boolean for is looping, I sort of forget. But we'll have a dialog object, and every dialog object is going to be instead of doing it, we'll do it for here for now, and then we'll change it in the end to be a little nicer. But for now, every dialog object is going to be string name and string dialog. And we'll also need to remember to have serialized field for both of these. That tells Unity, oh, you should show this so we can type something in. And also have a system.serializable here. So now we have something that represents a dialogue. If you want it to be cute, you could even have, I forgot to make these public, my apologies. if you wanted to be cute, you could even have like a public texture 2D or maybe sprite dialogue or character sprite. We could be cute. And if I'm going to have that, I might as well have in the dialog panel public image dialog image. And then I can have public void set image sprite. And I can take in a sprite. Right. And make sure that you have a capital S for the type of sprite and the lowercase s for the variable, or name the variable whatever you want. Doesn't matter. Dialog image dot sprite equals sprite. Equals the one that's up here. And I could even right click and rename that to dialog sprite. Just so that, you know, there's no confusion about which is which. All right, so now we have a dialog manager that might be able to manage these dialog objects. And then we have a panel that manages the dialog's view, so that we have the view separate from the controller, so that if you need to change one, you don't need to change everything. All right, so we need an array of these. So public dialog object dialogs. And this is going to represent a series of dialogues. So let's go back to not my card captors retrospective, but my Unity project here. Let's go to, I'm gonna right click, create an, let me just hit play, see what's my current scene. Is it? Oh yeah, so it's this one. Okay. So I'll go in and I will add a new create empty. I'll call it dialog controller. Boom. And I'll add this to it. Though I guess I should call it dialog manager to match. Dialog manager. My menu controller already has a few things on it. So let's pop over into here. And let's add a dialog tree into my UI. So I'll right click, create empty, dialog panel. And I'll add the dialog panel object to it. Boom. And dialog panel is going to have three fields. It's going to have the going to have a name text, a dialog text, and a dialog image. So let's make sure we have those things. I want it to be on the, I don't know, bottom of the screen. So it'll go from 0 to 1 on the X. As you see now, it goes 0 to 1. And on the Y, it's going to go from like 0 to 0.2. Yeah, see, maybe it takes up like that amount of space. Zero these guys out. I'll right click, create empty. Excuse me, I'll right click, create image. Boom, and call it dialog BG. It'll be the background. I'll give it a nice little sprite. I don't know. Boom. And I'll make sure that it takes up the full region, and I'll give it some breathing room on the side, so 50 pixels everywhere. Boom, boom. And then, I don't know, maybe I'd make it, instead of that color, I really should have had a white texture to make my life easier. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll just set it to the button here. Boom. So now it's at least like not too crazy looking. I'll add a little box or a shadow. Maybe like 10 and -10. So it kind of pops up on the screen. And now I can add my elements, like let's create empty, and I'll call it dialog content region. I'll have it take up the full breadth. Boom. It'll be a vertical layout or horizontal layout group. And maybe it'll have, actually no, I don't want a horizontal layout group because the name may be like, maybe the name's up here, maybe the character textures on here, and then the character text, like what they're saying, is the dialogue is going to be there. So I'll add 3 objects. I'll just make them empty game objects, and then I'll put the images in them. Image region and dialog region and name region. Okay, so the image region, I want it to be along the left-hand side, so maybe like 0.05 to 0.25, and then on the Y, maybe like 0.05 to 0.95. Let's see what that looks like. It'll be something like that. I'll add an image so it's easier to see. UI image. Boom. I mean, there needs to be an image there eventually anyway. And I'll make sure that it takes up the full bounds. Boom. And then whenever you add a picture, like, I don't know, what if that was his face? We just make sure that preserve aspect is checked off so that the whatever picture we want to put in there, it looks good. So then we'll have a dialog region. So let's add a text. Yeah, let's add a text in here. Boom. The dialog region is going to be, oh, before I do that, let me just make sure. Boom, it's taking up the bounds of its parent. The text, that is taking up the bounds of its parent. And now its parent. The other one ended at 0.25, so maybe this will start at 0.3, go to like 0.95-ish. And then go from, on the Y, maybe like 0.05 to 0.7. That looks good. Maybe I'll throw in some lorem ipsum. Lorem ipsum. That's like a web developer thing. It's actually like a really long. It might have been from the. I forget the actual origin of it. Lorem ipsum dolor. So I'll do best fit. Actually, I'll do a static size. 20. You'd never actually have this much text, so. At least I hope you wouldn't. The lorem ipsum to 24. Cool. So we've got some readable text here. And then the name region would also have some text. UI text. Boom. And it's going to be, instead of, I know that it's 0.05 or 0.3. Oh, excuse me. I'm inside the wrong object. So make this fill, I'm in the text. The text should fill the bounds of its parent, the name region, and the name region is what I need to size. So 0.3 to 0.95 on the X. And then on the Y, I believe I made the other one end at 0.75 or something. So this one should be from 0.8 or 8 to 0.95 or something like that along the Y. Cool. Maybe I'll mess with that a bit more. Maybe I do make it go right up to 0.75 along the bottom. Oh, maybe even 0.7. 0.7 on the bottom. And I'll make the name text. That was a 24, right? Didn't I make it 24? Yeah, 24. I'll make it bold. Boom. I'll make it bottom aligned. Boom. And now it'll look like that. Do I like that? I don't know. Maybe this is even bigger. Maybe it's like best fit. Boom. I'll make the best fit from 2 to 60. And so now we have a little name at the top. It should be good. Maybe I'll even make this size even bigger, like 30. Boom. if you want to have dynamic text, maybe you'd say best fit, so that depending on how much text is getting put in, you could set it up to do so. And okay, so we have the dialog panel. Now we need to tell the dialog panel. I'm going to rename these so that it's easier to make sure everything is good. Name text, dialog text. So that now when I go to my dialog panel, I can drag name text here, and it says name text, so I know that it's correct. Dialog text, and the image will get slid in as well. Boom. Now if we go to the game, I should see it down there. Looks good. Cool, cool. Another thing we might need is like a little next button. So I will right click, create a UI button. I'll call it BTN next. I'll make it hug the right hand side over here. Pause X like that. And a width and height of something comparable. Boom, boom. Now, since I know that the width, it's fine. It's fine. I was going to say I could mess around with it a bit and make sure that it would never overlap the other buttons. I'm admittedly not super duper worried because I am scaling with screen size, though I would have expected it to be 1600 by 900, not the other way around. So I might be in for a treat if something ever goes wrong. So let's go to the button next, and let's just give it a random image here. How can I make that bigger? Where's my previews? Oh, shouldn't I see a preview of my oh, target graphic, whoops. I need to click on this guy. Oh, here it is. Whoops, my bad. Dang, I don't have like an arrow to the right button. I could make it real quick. Or I could go to the interwebs, next button. Images. Fine, I'll take that. Save image as next. Put it inside my art. Next button. And it is of type sprite. Apply. Now I want to slice it up. Which I think I need to set it to multiple. Boom, sprite editor, apply, slice, automatic, boom, there we go, apply. Cool. Now I've got that next button in there. And I can go to my button next here and just plop it on. Boink. Now, it can be a little next button, so then when I want to hit it, I can. Unfortunately, I also looks like I need to... You don't need to do this. I just... it's fine. It's fine. Just for testing. Maybe I'll use a different image. I just picked one at random. Sure. No, there's no transparency. I can use that one. All colors, all types, transparent. I need one with a white background just so it's easier to see. Such a slacker. Oh, it's fine. I'll just pretend this button looks good. Just pretend it looks good. Okay, so we've got the button there. We've got everything we need. Now we need to be able to tell it instructions to change its text and see if it works. So let's go to our Dialog Manager, which we already created. I'll go back and Dialog Manager, there you are. And let's give them a couple dialogues. And the first sprite, it'll be the shield character, and the next one will be the sword character. His name will be Shield Boy. I like shields. Sword Boy. I like swords. So now there's two dialogue elements. And when we want to play them, we would probably have some type of control that would say public void trigger dialogue series. And maybe that would be like dialogue. We would want to put in a series of dialogue objects. Dialogue series, because it's saying play dialogue series. I don't know if you want the UE at the end. I forget if that's normal or not. Dialogue. Oh, there is a UE at the end of it. Unless it's just the British version. Oh, it's American. Okay. Yep, dialogue. British has the UE. I think usually I do the UE, but today I didn't. I'll live. But okay, so dialogue. I apologize for that. Let me just respond to that. Okay, so the dialogue series will be told to play a certain set of dialogue. I'm gonna call this debug dialogues, because this is just, we're gonna type it in and do it, but like really somebody should give it a set of dialogues at some point, and we would want to use those. And then we'll have the dialogue object array that is like the current dialogue series. So now, okay, we'll tell on start, or on trigger dialogue series, we'll say, okay, current dialogue series equals this new dialogue series that you passed along. And we need to manage playing this series in order. So that means we'll probably need to know like public int current. I do those underscores to show that it's not a public variable. Current dialogue index, because you know you're going to go from the first dialogue object to the last one. So we have that current dialogue index. I don't know if you need much more. So with that said, when a dialogue series is triggered, then we would have the current index get reset to 0. And then we could say public void show current dialogue and public void trigger next dialogue, or iterate dialogue to go to the next one. So when current dialogue is told to get shown, why is that underlining that? Oh, whoops. Current dialogue index, not series, for that first element. Okay, so we can tell the dialogue series to start. I say, okay, we're at the this is our new current dialogue index, going back to 0 because we're getting told to show a new one. This is my new series that I should keep track of, and now that I've set all that up, I can say show current dialogue. The other thing I'll need a reference to is I need to know my dialog panel, the UI. I need to know that UI system, dialog panel, so that I can say dialog object current dialog equals my dialog series at the location of my index. Boom. And then I can say dialog panel dot set dialog text, dialog sprite, and dialog name. And maybe I can make this easier for myself from the perspective of the manager and say public void set dialog content dialog object D. And I guess I have to reference it by dialog manager dot dialog, like that. And maybe for clarity, I'll say set dialog object. That. And then I can say set image sprite to being dialog image dot sprite. Excuse me, to dialog object dot sprite. Boom. Set dialog text to dialog object dot dialog, and then set name to dialog object dot name. Boom. And since that one handles everything, I should be able to just make this all no longer public because I only need access to this from the dialog manager. The dialog panel dot set dialog object to the current dialog, and that should update its text to being whatever we want. But we also want to add some checks and balances, because we shouldn't just assume that this dialog that we're trying to jump to exists. We need to make sure that it's safe to try to access this dialog entry, because if we try to go too far, like, oh, go to dialog entry 10 when we only have 9 entries, then you're going to get problems. Or if we try to go like -1 or something. So we need to sanity check before we do it. So if my current dialog series dot length is greater than my current dialog index, that means that it's safe to go. And let me think about this. So if I was 10 and I'm trying to go to element 9, then yeah, we're safe. I'll put this in here. Maybe I'll even have a little like bool dialog in progress equals false. And I can, like, when I start my dialog, I can say now I am. And when I stop, else, that means I've gone too far. Now dialog is done. The other thing I could do is I can open and close that panel because it's a panel object. So dialog panel dot open panel when I start my dialog. And when I'm done my dialog, I can say dialog or dialog panel dot close. Boom. So I can start and stop. All iterate dialog is going to do is it's going to go current dialog index ++. That means add 1 to whatever I was. So if I started it out at 0, now I'm at 1. And then show current dialog, which is going to run this method up here. So I add 1 to myself. Whenever you hit that button, it's going to run this method. And while I'm at it, maybe I should add a little something here. So public void on next dialog button pressed. When that button is pressed, I'll try to find the dialog manager. Dialog manager dm equals game object dot find object of type dialog manager. So I'm going to look for the dialog manager once that button is pushed, and I'll say if dm, if I found it. So if it's not equal to null, then dm dot what I call it, iterate dialog. Boom. So now I don't need to like worry about dragging and dropping stuff. It'll just work. So find the dialog manager and tell it to go to the next one. Okay, so we've got that all working. show current dialog happens, and now I'm just going to add this little test. So on awake, I'll say trigger dialog series with that debug dialog that I wanted. So debug dialogs, boom. And so in the future, you would have arrays of dialog, and then when you want, you would run this method, trigger dialog series, but it wouldn't be on awake, it would be on when something in your game happens. This debug is purely for testing so that we can look at how it works. Double check that I'm recording. That'd be a bummer if I'm not recording. I am recording. Good. I was like, I actually forget. Okay, so I think everything should be in place. The only thing we might need is I might need to go to Dialog Manager and drag in the dialog panel into it. Another nice way to do it is like trying to find it on start to make sure that it exists. And since I changed the name of that variable to debug dialogs, I need to re-add some text. So it'll be shield and sword. And the first one will be Macbeth. And it'll say, oh, then I see Queen Mab hath been with you. And then the next one will be Gertrude Stein. And that will say, a rose is a rose is a rose. Cool. Now when I press play, I believe it should just work. Prove me wrong. Macbeth. Oh, then I see Queen Mab hath been with you. Let me make this bigger. Whoa, whoa. Nice. Okay, so Macbeth works. This button will not work because I didn't give it a behavior yet. So let's go to that button in the prefab so that I only have to edit it here. And on button next, when it's been pressed, I'm going to drag the, not that one, I'm going to drag dialog panel onto it and say, okay, run your dialog panel on next button pressed. And that'll say, hey, dialog panel method, this thing just got pressed, and then dialog panel will handle finding the proper character, which is the dialog manager, saying, hey, dialog manager, you should try to iterate if you can. So now, without further ado, let's try pressing plus again. And actually, yeah, it should be fine. Now, Macbeth. Oh, then I see Queen Mab hath been with you. Next. Gertrude Stein. A rose is a rose is a rose. Cool. Next. And it goes away. Perfect. You can add different stuff like, oh, it should look like a close button if it's the last element, all that kind of stuff. We can talk about how to do that. But I thought that we'd do a nice, quick, brief dialogue system today. I hope that was informative. And let me know if you have any questions. Thanks so much. Bye.